things in the short period of time that we have. Good morning, Sarah, and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Richard. So good to be here, especially after this very bizarre July 4th.
I haven't heard anybody put it that way, but yeah, I would say bizarre is an appropriate word or reference. It was a bizarre 4th of July weekend on a lot of different fronts. How was your 4th of July weekend, though? I mean, I will have to ask that question to see how your weekend went.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I was pretty traumatized, actually. It was really sad. And I tried to focus on, that we got to July 4th through fighting, actually, having British troops in our country and not having representation. A lot of the issues that are coming up now, and a party, Republicans, who want to roll back basically the concept of the United States of America, the independence that we had. They want to take us back to being a monarchy or being under the rule of a corporation, basically, that would operate that way. So it makes me sad, and it's really difficult, but it's also, I think I wrote about this in one of my pieces. Nobody gets to choose their fights. This fight has been brought to us, and we have to rise to the occasion. People have fought worse things, and this is just what it is. We don't get a choice. We have to see what our characters are made of, and it's an opportunity for us to stand up for our values. So,
yeah, I mean, and it's sad that we that we're here, but we are here. And the fight is in front of us, and we have one option. We have one choice. There's a couple of options, but we have one choice, and the choice is we have to fight. Just for FYI, you guys, Sarah wrote this great article and post that's titled, and you guys should make your way over to Politicus USA and her Substack work. It's phenomenal. She and Jason Easley are great writers, and they care about getting a message out to folks that can appreciate where we have to be. This is one of the many that Sarah wrote in the last couple of days, and it's titled Liberals, Conservatives, and Independents Form Initiative to Fight for Democracy and Freedom. And earlier in the show, I talked about, I always say progressives, liberals, Democrats, and I've gone back to something I said a while ago, which is adding in independents, Republicans, and everybody that really genuinely cares about the country. And that recognizes you can't, and if you are a person that in your heart or in your mind you say that you are a heartfelt person of humanity, then you can't sit back and not see what's happening and be willing to tolerate this. And I'm talking about, everything from immigration, particularly snatching people, calling them illegals, grabbing babies from mom's arms, to all those things that we see. It's got to horrify you, and you have to, from irrespective of your political stripe, be willing to step up, because that's about humanity, which has no political stripe. And to your point, in your article about liberals, conservatives, and independents form initiative to fight for democracy and freedom, talk a little bit about that. Talk a little bit about the basis of what you wrote and why you wrote this.
Well, I saw that these folks had come together, and it's people from all walks of life that came together, from Pete Buttigieg to Stacey Abrams to Sophia Bush, Linda Carter, Celeste Ng, Leslie Clark. There's just people from all political stripes coming together to say, what we see is not okay. This is not okay, and we want to stand up for these freedoms, and we want to defend people's rights. And part of that is to educate people and remind people that you have these rights. This country was built on these premises, and they're all going to stand up for that. Now, people might think, what does that do? Well, it actually does a lot, because I am really hoping that many of us have learned from our history books. And so we know that this time around, when you see concentration camps being built, and when you see a president threatening to arrest people who are U.S. citizens and put them in concentration camps and arrest people for dissent, when you have big names like this that are willing to stand up and say, they will stand up for what's right. They will be that voice. That's really important. And then it's also important to counteract. There's a lot of propaganda. It's like a fire hose of propaganda coming at all of us from the Republican Party and from, I'm sorry to say, way too much of the media that's sort of serving almost as stenography for them. And so, you know, it is what it is. They're stenography for billionaires. And we have to have some kind of counteraction to that. And so when you have people with big platforms, with big names who are willing to help educate everybody and remind everybody, you have these rights. We are going to tell you this is our value system. We won't let this be forgotten. And it's just critical. And when I saw that they were doing this, it really hit me because again, like the Independence Day, July 4th, it hit me in the gut. I think I just spent the day in such a state of mourning and then contrasting that with what I'm so impressed by the people who continue to get out and protest, who call their representatives and their senators, the states that are standing up. Your governor is a good example of that. States that are, and that's another way. You know, we have all these ways of fighting that they didn't have in Nazi Germany, and I just want to make that clear. There's so much fear, and I share that fear. I'm not going to whitewash that. I'm not going to pretend it's not there. It is there, and it's real. But there are also differences to what was going on in Nazi Germany, and that's important. We have state-controlled elections here. We have governors in some blue states who are willing to stand up and do things to protect their people. And yes, these are all going to be fights. You know, it isn't like, oh, they're going to stand up and that he's going to give them their rights. That's not going to happen. It's going to be a battle for sure. But it's really important to have people willing to stand up. And so when I saw this initiative, I thought that's what people need. They need to know that they're not alone. When you see somebody else speaking up, and I'm sure everybody has this example in their personal life, when somebody, or you've read someone, or you've listened probably to Richard, you know, or you listen to someone speaking up, it emboldens you. And it gives you the sense, when you know you're not alone in a fight, it helps you rise to the moment. And so we all have to remember constantly that we are not alone. And I think when we look at presidents who've really roused the American people and helped remind them of who they are and what they can do, the two that come to mind, for me at the moment, there's many of them, but I would say at the moment, JFK and Barack Obama. Mm-hmm. And both of them got into the whole thing about standing up and about, Barack Obama, yes, we can. He would always say, it's not about me, it's about you. Yeah. And that was to empower each of us. We are the power of this country. And that is very true. It's baked into our system. He's trying to take that away. He and the Republican Party and this, I would say, corrupt Supreme Court are trying to take that away from people.
And it's
that doesn't mean that. Oh, go ahead.
No, you're going to say that doesn't mean.
It doesn't mean that it's going to work. And I think that's how I ended this piece, right? It's a battle. They want to win this battle, but we're fighting back. The conclusion to this fight it's not a foregone conclusion.
No, not at all. And listen, we're talking with Sarah Jones of Politicus USA, and thank you as always for being with us on our Mondays where we can chat. One of the things that I want to talk about, and specific to the article and some of the pieces that Sarah keeps referring back to with this initiative, and the conservative, liberal, and independent leaders joined together to launch "We Hold These Truths," an initiative to promote freedom, equality, and democracy. And let me go further, Sarah. One of the things that they put out is a really great post on social media, and the actress Sophia Bush, who is the actress that was in the TV show here in Chicago PD, has really been a voice and really spoken out. And to your point, used her power, her notoriety, if you want to call it that, to speak to this. And one of the things that they put out, you guys, is we still hold these truths, even though they are under attack. To Sarah's point, it will take all of us to protect and defend people, their rights, and our future. Join us at weholdtruths.org. I would highly recommend that you guys, if you're listening anywhere, following anywhere in the country, go to weholdtruths.org. What they're doing is about unification, unity, bringing people together. And I'll read a little bit from what she posted, Sophia Bush. I spent a lot of time yesterday reflecting on a feeling I've been feeling deep in my bones this year, a mixture of the profound and the profane, the awe and love I hold for this country and what she is supposed to be, and the deep pain I witness the way she's being bastardized, gutted, and remade in the image of a terror state. So, to that messaging, to what Sarah just said, it is an optimistic look at us recognizing that just because they're pushing us, just because they are creating all of these scenarios, it should further embolden us to fight even harder. And why I said what I said coming off of July 4th weekend, that we have to fight even harder if we actually believe and truly do cherish the things. And I say this coming from the perspective of a black man in America, a country that's loved me less than I've loved it, to use the phrase of Glenn Doc Rivers. This country in many places has loved me less than I've loved the country. And the same thing for women. It's loved women less than than women have actually loved this country. So believe me, if I'm still willing to fight, then I think that so many other people should say we have to continue to fight, because I just feel that that's part of our responsibility. As much as I complain about things that are happening, my job, my belief at this point in my life is to fight for us and to fight forward for us.
You said that so perfectly, and I it's. I'm really glad you mentioned your experience and the experience of many people who are Black Americans, as well as women, as being, having our rights taken away from us consistently throughout history, not having rights. It does. Sometimes I think, and I'm not trying to criticize anybody, but when I see people really bemoaning, like, okay, this is too much. We've lost. Everything is gone. And I think, wow, that's it. You're just going to, that's not, the rest of us have been out here. We're still fighting for basic rights to be treated like human beings. Black Americans don't have that in this country. They have never had that. Women don't have that in terms of our bodies. We don't have the right to live right now in many states. But we're out here. We're not going to say we're defeated. I think defeatism, and I see that a lot on the left. I wish I didn't, but I do. It's like this constant kind of refrain that has really permeated. And, talk about the tail wagging the dog. That has permeated the Democratic Party to the point where we are seeing fight now. But for so long, they didn't fight because they're reading that from us. They're reading that from their base. And the base will be, we can never win. That's it. And there was this attraction to being the underdog for so long. And I would invite people to not think about it like that anymore.
Nope.
Think about and embrace being a victor. You need to write the history of this country, and the only way you can do that is when you are victorious in your battles.
And in your mindset.
You have to get out there.
And in your mind.
Exactly.
That's the part. Yes. And I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just wanted to add to that, Sarah. It's in our mindset that because I believe that's what goes first. It's taking away the desire, taking away the aspiration, taking away the will, mental will. I believe people physically can not literally fight, but physically have the strength to get out and do it. It's the mental will that they're trying to take away. They're trying to make this so incredulous and so awful and so, creating such an element of being downtrodden and hideousness that it takes the will away mentally first. And I'm a mentally strong-willed person. I will not allow that to happen to me or those that are around me. And in this case, around me means the country. And so to your point, Sarah, we as the Democratic mindset has got to be less about being the underdog or anything of that nature. And we've got to be the ones that break some stuff. And we got to be the ones that knock over, as I say, the tables and get people's attention and let them know we are here for the fight. Are you ready?
And we have to want to win. That I think there's this aversion to power on the left. And I'm just speaking, I'm going to keep it real. I've seen this in the Democratic Party since I started writing in 2010. We don't, as a culture, power has been abused. And so you see people stand back from power. And we've seen our leaders and elected officials not grab the power they've been given by us. And I want to change that.
And it's because what happens is, and we're just being transparent, y'all. The minute that someone that does recognize the power of power used correctly, then they get ostracized, they get painted into a corner. And then if that person is not strong enough, they will wither to that. And I'll give you some examples. The people like let's use an example. CBS and ABC have a lot of power, wouldn't one say? But they yielded to some lawsuits that they could have actually won with Trump. That, to me, that's not elected officials. But let's look at the political folks who stepped to the mic and then got criticized and didn't wither. I mean, every one of them that's done it, whether it be Jasmine Crockett, ALC, Eric Swalwell, the list goes on. When they step to the mic and they get ostracized or they get thrown a bunch of garbage on them, they just keep fighting their way through it. And people are drawn to that. So I've said on an individual basis, we individually, when we step out and fight and take the lead, people are drawn to that. And that's what allows us as regular, everyday folk to have the impact. That's why these groups, that's why this organization, this initiative is so powerful because, they've got certain things at risk. No, everybody does. But they're still deciding that, we still hold these truths. And I think we have to be willing to do the same thing in our daily lives.
Yeah, I think it's so important for what I want people to think about doing in their daily lives as one way to fight back against this horrible fire hose of propaganda is to repeat in the outer world, whether you do it online or at work or with your family members, wherever you are in the world, repeat every day. Trump and Republicans took away health care for tax cuts for the rich, which they did not pay for.
Yep.
Even by taking away this health care, they did not pay for that. So they took away food from babies. They took away food from seniors. They hurt veterans. They hurt people with disabilities. And they did all that to try to justify a tax cut for the wealthy that they are not even paying for.
Nope.
They're not fiscal conservatives. So on every level, what they are doing is lying to the American people.
They are not fiscal conservatives. That is correct.
Because they are not.
They are not.
Yeah.
I mean, Sarah, you may have heard me earlier when I said that this looking at this change to the ICE budget that's part of this bill, just that alone, now making them, by many measures, the largest law enforcement entity in the country, or certainly, in this current administration. They've 5 times the budget. So from $9 billion to somewhere close to billion dollars. How much of that money, I mean, how many people can you deport that if that's what ICE is supposed to be doing? First of all, the other side of that, the double-edged side of that sword is you deport all these people that you're saying that are illegals, which is horrible to say. So we know that what dearth that's going to create when it comes to just services and sustaining the country. But more importantly, why aren't GOP voters yelling and screaming, you're going to take that kind of money to get rid of people when my community still needs support and help? How about Appalachia? Where are you? Where are the folks in Appalachia? Where are the people in southern and rural communities throughout the country complaining about that redirection and significant increase in the budget?
Well, I did write about, and I should clarify, we have two, there's Politicus for news on Substack, and then there's the Daily, which is where these long form, like research-based pieces are. So there's two different places. I think you just read one from the Daily, but there's, what are they doing with ICE? They're giving ICE more money than the FBI, the ATF, the Drug Enforcement Agency, the Bureau of Prisons, all combined,
yep.
Right? So they are emboldening ICE to be like a private police force, and I think that's an accurate assessment of the situation. I don't even know, when we see these ICE agents, they've got their faces covered a lot of times. We don't even really know that they have been trained in any way. We don't even know that they actually work for ICE.
Yeah.
They could be vigilantes of Trump's. We don't know. But to your question about what's happening and why are Trump voters, because, I live in a district, let's see, 69.2% voted for Trump here.
Wow.
And yeah, it's very interesting. I heard people talking, and I wrote about this, like, it was very interesting. I heard people talking out in the wild about this bill and how they were taking away all these things that people here have relied on. And many of them have these personal experiences with, SNAP, help for single mothers, help for kids, like the job force, just various ways, the social safety net, basically. And so I heard these people in all these different places talking about this and being really upset. I do want to, clarify that doesn't mean they're going to vote any differently. What Republicans are so good at, and especially Donald Trump, is they're good at counteracting. Like, I think I've talked to you about how I watched them do this with January 6th. At first, people here, even big-time Trump supporters, were really upset about January 6th. Then give them, 6 months of propaganda, and they've all turned the page on that, and they think that it was Antifa and the FBI. Mm-hmm. They really believe that now. And so even though this stuff is trickling down, and the thing that I thought was really interesting was some of these people, and I would say probably most of them, when I asked them, what do you read? How do you know about this? Oh, I don't read the news. This is just what's happening by talking to one another in their community. Now, that is harder to propagandize against, because when people have a personal experience, it's much harder to tell them that's not real. Yeah. And we've seen that with Trump supporters in particular, although I'm sure it's true of all of us, but I think more specifically to them, this kind of lack of empathy and a lack of imagination to apply something that is true in their life and understand that it is true for others. And that there is a missing link there. Then it probably comes with the experience and the values that you see on the far right of, even in their own homes, there's more of a autocratic kind of system with parents. There's an embrace of physical, abuse.
Yeah, the household that it leads to a conversation, not a conversation, but a mindset where people are willing to, in some ways, kind of look past it, say it's okay, it's the norm, and it's crazy, Sarah. Man, how quickly the time goes by when you're it's like,
It sure did. Yeah.
All right.
I just looked at it. I was like, oh, sorry. I gotta go.
No, it's all right. Listen, Sarah, it's great to have you with us as always. So appreciate your work and all that you write about. You guys check out Sarah Jones, Politicus USA, as well as The Daily with Sarah Jones. Great work, and we always appreciate